What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? T to the M to the IDD, and I'm back here to give you an update on my studio that I use in my home. And so last year around this time, I gave a tour, and that was my actual first live stream. So I'm here to update, show you some new things that I have included, and give you an overall layout so that you may be able to use some of the things that I use, because a lot of us are limited to space. So we are going to break this down into a couple of different things, and one is going to be the overall layout, so the dimensions of my basement, so it gives you more context to what I'm doing right here. The second thing is going to be my support system that you see behind me that actually holds my backdrops. The third thing is going to be the light modifiers I have. And the fourth thing is going to be my actual lights that I use. Now, we are going to also touch on some of the supporting things that help make these photo shoots successful, like props and external lighting. As you can see, I'm being lit right now. So let's hop into the first thing, which is the support stand. Now, at first I had an original support stand that comes from Amazon, you know, with the super package. You get all these lights, you get these green backdrops, black backdrops, and you get the support stand. What happened was, the support stand for that, it needed space down by the legs. You all know that you have to elongate the stand, and so instead of, you know, needing this much space, once you elongate or extend the legs out, now you need this much space. And so in order to get some of that space back, which I'm not heavily afforded being in my basement, I switched to this Veripole system where you only need a ceiling and a floor, and the tension between the two will hold up the pole itself, and it works absolutely phenomenal. It saves me space down on the floor side, which allows me to put secondary lights like a rim light, backlight, kicker light, however you want to call it, in those positions where previously the legs for the support system would have been. So I definitely recommend this Veripole stand if you are limited to space. Even if you are not, you can use this for other things, as far as you can actually use this to mount lights on, things like that. So I absolutely love this Veripole stand. It has afforded me so much more additional space. Now, if you look camera right, we actually have some backdrops, and I have about 5 different backdrops, and I kind of play with the color, and when I edit, I actually can get different colors if I play with the hue. So like for my red backdrop, if nothing else is really red, you can add a mask to it and I can get an orange. So I kind of make sure I use all of my backdrops to the fullest extent. Okay, so speaking of supporting pieces, now with this Veripole system, I have a backdrop, but unfortunately in my basement, I have carpet. And so if I was to just put the backdrop on my carpet, if a model went to step on it, then it would easily poke holes on it. And also, grease transfer from putting oil on their skin, things like that. So I want to preserve my backdrop paper as much as possible. So what I did to prevent that was, one, I bought a wood plank, and that wood plank would go onto the carpet. I would then pull down the backdrop, and then once the backdrop is laid down, I would add the plexiglass on top. Now, that would act as a support, so that whenever they step on it, they will not put holes in the backdrop. And then the plexiglass helps with a couple different things. Now, one, it provides a nice reflection when I go to edit, always makes the edit look nice and clean. Secondly, it helps preserve the backdrop, because instead of the model just sitting or laying on the backdrop, then they're laying on a plexiglass, and so whatever oil, things like that, only gets on the plexiglass and not the backdrop. Now for this combination, I paid $20 for this piece of wood, and I paid $20 for this piece of plexiglass. And as far as dimensions, this piece of wood is 48 inches by 24 inches, and it is a 3/4 inch thick. And this plexiglass is the same dimensions, 48 inches by 24 inches, except the thickness is 1/8 of an inch. Now, I use this for my smaller backdrops, which are 53 inches by 36. And so those are those in the corner. Now, if you look, you see a longer piece. And why did I get a longer piece of kind of the same setup? What happened was, I have these longer backdrops. So why use this small piece for the longer backdrops when I have all of this real estate? It's really limiting the creativeness that you could bring to it. So I had to invest. You definitely have to invest in your things. So this combination was $40. I went and bought an extended combination of the same thing to use with my longer backdrops, and you can see that right here. And so this piece of plexiglass is 96 inches by 48 inches, and then the piece of wood is the same dimensions, and the thickness is 1/2 inch, and the plexiglass is 1/8 inch as well. And so for that combination, the plywood was $60 and the plexiglass was $120. So it's definitely worth it. I've been able to get so much more creative shots, especially I've been working with a lot of models who are a lot taller, and believe me, that will save you in the long run. Now, speaking of additional things that kind of help make this this space a nice creative space, I have props like this right here. I have chairs. This makes a nice, excellent prop to just stand on, sit on. I have 2 of these, so sometimes I double it up, put a sheet over top of it, and you know, you have to be creative with the things that you have. So I've used this in plenty different situations. Also, the lighting that is lighting me right now. Now, previously, I would use the light that is already in my studio, but it leaves a really warm, incandescent look inside of my photos, because they're like literally right overhead. And if I turn these out and only use the ones in the back, then the autofocus struggles because it's so dark. So in order to preserve those things, I use the lights that came with that Amazon package that I was telling you all about. My first lighting setup with the continuous lights and the previous stand that I had. And so those work absolutely perfect. I can overpower them with my flash. And so when I actually shoot, I have no problem eliminating this light so that my flash is actually controlling the light. So now let's get into the light modifiers. Okay, now we are going to talk about the light modifiers. Now, the light modifiers are something that gradually increased, right? So if you look right here, this is like the original. You probably can tell just from the diffusion layer, it has been through its paces. 24 by 24 Godox. This was the first one that I actually had, and if you look far back on my channel, you'll see that that is the first modifier and only modifier I had for a long time. And then I added 2 35 by 9 strip boxes with the grid. I have Fovatech Beauty Dish 22 inch with the grid, and I also have a single layer of diffusion that I could switch this out with, and it also has the deflector plate inside. Something that is new, I have this newer 32 inch lantern, so I've been playing with this lately. One of my main travel companions when it comes to lighting is this 33.4 inch deep parabolic easy lock glow. It does become double diffused, and it also has a grid with it. And the reason why I like this one in particular is because you can mount it directly onto the Godox 8300 Pro or the Godox 8400. So moving along. Now this is a 34-inch Easy Lock Glow beauty dish that can also be double diffused and also comes with a grid deflector plate, great light as well. I have some grids here, as I mentioned. One of the most phenomenal light modifiers right here, Optical Snoot. I have reflector, and then we have Manny Ortiz 36-inch beauty dish by Westcott. Now this one, pretty decent modifier as well. We have this umbrella, and this is a Fovitec umbrella. I believe this is like a 30-inch Fovitec umbrella. And lastly, we have the reflector, which is crucial if you want to do headshots, you want to fill in, get a nice reflector. Okay, so now we are coming to the end of the things that I use in my home studio to make everything happen that you all see. And I wanted to leave the dimensions of the space I'm working in until this point, because I wanted to be able to give you all a comparison, because this right here is the largest modifier I have, which is a 65-inch Easy Lock Glow umbrella, and it has a diffusion layer also. Now, if you can see, it fits, but it barely fits. So with the room layout, now if we are going to talk left to right in this direction, we are looking at about 15 feet in width. And then if we talk about in length, we are looking at about 25 feet. So anytime you see, I typically have the model about right here, I'm at least 10 to 15 feet away from the model when I'm all the way on the other end of my basement. So that gives you a good context of how I'm shooting most of the time, because most of the time you see I'm out the frame is because I'm all the way on the other end of the basement using the 70 to 200 because I love the compression. So this 65-inch umbrella, I wasn't too sure if it was going to work in my space, but I'm glad that it does. And also in terms of ceiling height, you know, I really didn't know what the ceiling height was, but I actually measured it, and it's about 8.5 to 9 feet high. So it just barely makes it for this. I know I probably wouldn't go any higher than something that's 65 inches because I don't really have the space here. But if I go up to my living room, now I have like 10, 12 foot high ceilings there. So I could definitely make something work right there. But just in this space, I wanted to definitely give you all that perspective because I've been getting that question a lot. Now, we are going to talk about the lights that I have. Now, right here, we actually have a Godox MS300 that I love using. I think it's one of the best budget lights for about $105. You can't go wrong. Now, attached to the strip box, I have a Godox 8200. Still, I think it's a great beginner flash. And then I have two supports. So I have a S mount and a S2 mount that helps connect the lights with the modifiers. And then here, you see I have the Godox 8300 Pro, and this is the S2 mount with some additional stands. Now, when we get things, we always try to reuse them, right? So when we reuse them, this original support had stands, right? And so now I have made them light stands. So right here, you can see this one right here was actually the stand that I used to use to hold my backdrops. So I'm using everything, spare nothing, because we need to make it work. Now also you can see in this frame, we have a mirror. Now, originally I had this mirror on the wall, but I have taken it down and I've used it as a prop, but I've also used this mirror as something that the models can look into. Now, if you don't have a mirror, that's probably one of the top things on my list that I would say to definitely get, because I can't count how many times I've seen the model look into the mirror just to check and make sure they like how everything looks on them. So that is definitely something that you should look into getting. Now, you see everything that I have and everything I gradually bought. So don't think you have to just buy. Buy what works for you, buy what works for your space, buy what works for your budget, and then gradually increase the things that you use. Now, in terms of cameras, which is something that, you know, is nice to know what is using. Primarily, I use Nikons, but I own Sony cameras and I actually own a Canon camera as well. So depending on what the topic is for my video that I'm creating would determine what I'm going to use. Now, you see what I have, you see what I use, you know what my space and layout is, you know what you have, use what you can for your space, your budget. T to the M to the IDD. Peace.